What's going on, everybody? We are here brought in part by Darth Microtransaction. We're going to be talking about the state of Diablo Immortal and kind of what's going through our minds here. As someone who used to grind the game myself several hours a day, and I've kind of dropped off just a little bit because of the state of the game. Where are your thoughts at right now, Darth, on your current enjoyment of the game? Are you excited to open up Diablo Immortal?
I don't think the game has changed for me. I think what's happened is we've hit a portion of the game that's different than what we've done before. So basically, in my personal opinion, the game has been fun all the way up until now, where we're hitting a portion where there's a lull in time, both for the next update, which has already admittedly been pushed back, as well as between difficulties. It's the longest portion we've had. So because of that, we know that if we farm gear now, the next gear is going to be explicitly better. So there's not a huge incentive to do anything right now because we can basically just not do literally anything, and then in 2 weeks just grind twice as hard, and we'll save like a ton of time basically.
Yeah, yeah, and the same kind of idea has been throughout Diablo, especially like that first week. You're like, oh well, I can just grind at Paragon 30 and just get instant upgrades. But you're right, like that was 30 Paragon levels. This is 90. That's literally 45 days in terms of actual time, which is just an absurd amount of time to like have basically no content to do in the game. I guess, have you been excited about like class changing as much as before? Because I know like when class change came out for me, I was incredibly excited. But one thing that's like super annoying to me is like I can't class change to Barb without like investing tens of hours to get set
That has
items.
to be changed. I mean, full stop, they have to add this as a change. They've already added the reserve gear can be changed, and
Mhm.
the reserve gear goes from intelligence to strength or strength to intelligence. Like when you swap it, that primary stat gets swapped. It's not like you have barb gear with intelligence on. That's not the way it works. Your primary stat becomes the next primary stat, right? So why this isn't the same for the set pieces that are infinitely harder to get, it doesn't make any sense to me. I actually think it's just an oversight. Like I don't think it's something that they would be opposed to changing if we make a big enough stink about it. But for me, it makes class changing extremely difficult because I have tried Barbarian, I've tried Monk, and when I swap to Strength class and then swap back, you're instantly gutted of any set bonuses you have, etc. The game is basically telling you once you get to in game, you're not allowed to play different primary attributes. You either have to be Strength or you have to be Intelligence because the set pieces don't transfer. So the set pieces become literally worthless. It's the hardest thing to get in the game. They're even nerfing the dungeon requirements of players for it. But then if you want to use the coolest feature in the game, which is class change, which is how they want you to do it, they don't want you to make 15 different alts. They want you to class change, right? It's incentivized not to class change. So there's some contradictory nature in the way that they have the infrastructure of the system set up.
Yeah, I'd really like some sort of essence transfer system for set items. I think that would actually be a really, really cool system. Granted, this is even more of a step forward than just like allowing us to use all of our set items on every class as we swap. But actually, like, let's say you're gonna farm a mount bank set, then you just get it permanently and you can just transfer it onto your gear. And so now you're farming just for combat rating, and then you can transfer whatever essence transfer to that set item. I mean, maybe this is like there's some downside to where, oh, well, it's not encouraging enough farming for dungeons and dungeons will die or something like that. Maybe, but I think that most often than not, people just they get their one set item anyways, and then they're gone out of dungeons anyways. Like they have their 6-piece set, they're done. And especially since like they're some of the most impactful power spikes in the entire game. I like Grace said, I kind of did the math. It's like a 20% damage increase for some classes. So like that's a huge deal, and it's something that you kind of need to do. So it's definitely turned me away from swapping to like Barb or or Monk right now. Even though I really want to, I think Barb is actually a class that I'm gonna really enjoy. Unlike you, I think that I'm gonna be hyped to just literally face smash because that is what I enjoy doing. I love jumping in there, and that's the big fun I have with this game is just getting in there and running at people. And unfortunately, there isn't really a whole lot of motivation to do that in terms of progressing our characters. Like I can't run in there and do challenge rifts right now because all it's going to do is give me more combat rating, and I can't even do health 5 right now. and then I can't do Hell 5 and actually progress my character because I'm locked because of the time gate. So yeah, there's not a lot for me to do right now. That's why, I mean, you saw it, guys. Dart just invited me to party. We are a pirate crew 99% of the time, for me at
Just
least.
farming Paragon. I mean, there's not really a whole lot. For me, I don't think this is a problem unique to Diablo more, though. I think it's one of the innate problems of mobile games where the lifeblood of these games is constant, rigid updates. Like, mobile games get stale really quickly if you don't always have new content bleeding in. That's why every person's always like, where's the new content? Where's the new content? Content in these mobile games, especially, and on PC games too, but especially on these mobile games, because they're grindy and you hit a point where there's not really like a whole lot to do at some point. So you're waiting on the new stuff. You're like, I built my character up, I've hit the peak, the goalpost has moved, now I'm waiting for the goalpost to move again. And I just think right now people are more bored because honestly, the updates, while they have added good things like quality of life things, they haven't really added much like new content. Like the Fracture plane is great once a week for about an hour.
Yeah. And
Yeah. And
let me ask you something, because I think this is an interesting question, because you talked about other mobile games. And I would absolutely put Diablo Immortal in that category. As I said initially when the game released, they claimed they didn't have an energy system. I consider the Paragon system a pseudo energy system to gatekeep your progression by time. And so, are they doing a good enough job? If the idea here is they're not necessarily focused on bringing veteran players back or additional content, I don't think that that's necessarily their huge goal. The time in of itself will bring veteran players back. Are they doing good enough on new player acquisition, or should they do something else? Should they make like the whole new player experience better? Is it good enough already? Like, do you think that this game can survive in sort of a Raid Shadow Legends style where they're just kind of bringing in new players and letting the other people fall off, which is what's happening right now? A lot of the veteran players are kind of just, hey, I'm bored, maybe I'll take a break, or maybe I'll just come back in a couple months or something like that.
So I have a couple of takes on this, which is that games are always going to have a peak. Like, I've been in a ton of games, you've been in a ton of games. Mobile games will always have a very large peak, and then they're going to dip down, and they'll have like a dead cat bounce, etc. Right? So this pretty much always happens with every mobile game. So I'm not like, oh, Pikachu face shocked to see that the servers are not as large as they were literally launch week. Well, I will say is that I also don't want to give them too much crap because they've been focusing on quality of life and infrastructure stuff. Like, they've been adding stuff in the game that is like changing things that we've all asked for, like treasure goblins drop legendaries, stuff like that. I'm talking about minor things, stuff that we should probably be like, come on, this should have been in the game already, but they are actually sort of following what we have asked for the feedback. So in terms of changing things for the better, I think they're on the right path. They're listening to the feedback. What I don't think they're doing a good job at, if I am being honest, is the fact that the new stuff that they choose to add to the game, other than stuff like Class Change was good, okay, but Class Change, in my opinion, is not really like new content. It's another like quality of life feature, in my personal opinion. So adding actual new content to the game hasn't really been that intriguing. Because if I flip the question to you and say, what is your most exciting content update to date?
It's class
change. Can you even think of one? It's the class change?
It's class change for me, 100%. Yeah.
Okay, so if we take class change out of the equation, we've had the class change, which we'll admit is great. If we take it out of the occasion, what else have they added that's basically new to the game that you're super excited about?
I have not, and I have said this to you earlier, I didn't even participate in the Gorgorath Zone event. I literally just didn't do it because I thought, like, I understood what it was, and I got all the information about it, and yes, you can get a legendary from it. It's not fun to me. I don't want to schedule a 15-minute period exactly at noon to go do it. The thing that I really enjoyed, Fracture Plane. I thought it was incredibly fun. I enjoy the sense, like, progression is why you play mobile games, right? At least that's why I play it. And that is like a mini progression system within the game, and you have to figure out what to do with your limited restrictions. I like being restricted and then seeing what I can do and then progressing through the game mode. I tried to do it deathless. I ended up not doing it deathless. I got one death, but I thought it was fun. That one was fun for me.
Okay, so that's fair enough. For me, I have a hard time considering it new content if it's something that goes away after like a week or two, and if it's something that only happens at a certain time. I really absolutely hate this concept that like the events are all happening at noon server time, because basically what you're saying is if you're not playing at noon server time, you don't get to experience the new content. which means it's new content only for some people, which isn't really new game content. It's a temporary event for some people. So I don't understand that first and foremost. Now you could argue, okay, well, then what you should do is pick a better time zone for your place. But it's like, dude, we didn't know that all of the events were going to run at noon all of the time. Like there's Echo of the Immortal, the Vault, the normal PvP Battlegrounds, and then Gorgroth. So it's like they're literally telling you, hey, you can't defend the Vault right now, right? Like, I mean, there's been times people were like, hey, can you come help me defend the Vault? I'm like, oh, I can't if I wanted to try the event. Like, sorry.
Yeah.
Like, I just literally can't.
I agree with you. I think that's 100% right. And I think the problem with this is that they kind of lock themselves into this time schedule, right? Because what have they scheduled in the evening times? Arguably the most important game modes in the game, Shadow War, Rite of Exile, the Immortal Battle, all that type of stuff, Raid the Vault, Defend the Vault. Those are arguably the most important content in the game in terms of like a competitive sense. So it's like, what other time zones do you have? You know, maybe beforehand, maybe like that 3-4 o'clock period, at least on server time, and then noon. I think that they don't need to do that at all. Like, I think that they could do some sort of situation where the events are on an hourly cycle. Like, why not make Gorgorath, you know, this hourly cycle every hour on the hour, something like that.
There's zero reason not to. Like, I don't understand this concept of why they can't do it. It takes hundreds of legendaries to get like triple rows. Okay, it's not like you get this stuff literally instantly. Okay, on top of it, like, they don't monetize this. It's not like they're losing money. Why can't they just have the event multiple times? You literally could have it. You can only get the reward one time a day.
Yep.
Done. And then you can run it 24 times, every on top of every hour. You can just go and have fun with the DPS chart if you want, but you can only get the reward once.
Yep.
Like, how is this hard to figure? This takes 15 seconds to look at the event and figure this out. So they're going halfway with these events. It's not like I hate the event. My feedback to them on both Fractured Plane and the Gorgoroth one was I love them both.
Yep.
I like the events both, but you only go halfway. The Fractured Plane isn't permanent and it's weekly. Like, what are we doing? There's no leaderboard. You get one legendary. Like, come on. Like, this is a great event. You've done a great job. For me, it's like they make a really cool product and then they just advertise it terribly, or they go halfway with it. You know what I mean? Where it's like, wonderful concept, terrible execution.
On that note, there's one change that I think was one of the most controversial changes. I think it's great. There's no downside to it, but it wasn't exactly what people wanted to some degree, and that's the dungeon changes. I think, like, after testing it myself, I've done like literally hundreds of dungeon runs. You can get double set item drops from the chest and from the boss. So that's we've seen screenshots of it. I've seen people do it in the clan. I've still not gotten one myself, but it's clear that the dungeon drop rates have at least been buffed somewhat. At least that's what it is to me. But it's still not like, you don't want to do 2 people dungeons. You can't solo it. You can't do 2 people dungeons generally because it's like twice the amount of time. So like, do you still want solo dungeons? Would you do dungeons if it's solo, or would you still only do them because you got the bonus chest?
I would probably do dungeons like 3 to 5 times more if I could do them solo. Because even if it doesn't change like the HP or anything. Reason being is, what bothers me the most is, like, I don't want to log on and do 1 or 2 runs then leave the group. I feel like a bad party member if I do that. Like, normally I'll be sitting down on the couch watching an episode of my favorite show, which is Nathan For You right now, or The Rehearsal. Great shows. I'll watch this show and I'll want to log on and play 1 run of Forgotten Tower or something. Just like, hey, let me 1-time it, see if I get my ring I've been waiting for like literally the entire game. If not, no biggie. But what I don't want to do is find even one other person and then do the run with them and have them be like, dude, what the fuck? Like, we got together, we did 1 run, and now you're leaving. So it removes the option of playing on my own time. It just removes it fully because there's another person there. Like, just full stop. And so I thought originally when it came out, it's like, oh, the 2-person's nice. It's half as much. And it is better because it's easier now. And they had a pretty good logic as to why they have it that way, because they do want to encourage partnership and all this type of stuff. I get their logic behind it. But in reality, what it means is people just do it less, or they don't get to play on their own time. That's why games like RuneScape are still doing great way down the road, because what they're doing is adding more sandbox things, more game modes, more ways for people to play the game that's already made and under their terms, and people respond well to that. They don't respond well to having these events, even if well designed, shoehorned into only the time that they want them to be. I don't think strong arming people with updates is a good idea.
Yeah, I agree with that pretty much 100%. And so let me ask this one question, because this is something that I've thought about, and this is something that I'm a little worried about, honestly, in terms of major update, because it's coming. It seems to be, maybe we're going to get some hints on it next week. We're not quite sure. Or in a couple of weeks here, late September is when they said they're probably going to drop the major content. So that is going to be a huge pressure on everyone just because they delayed it. You know, this is the first major update besides class change. I'm a little worried because I'm sure, I think you made a video on this with Pez Radar saying like zones are coming, new zones are coming soon. If new zones come, I think they will consider that a major update. And that's what I'm worried about. That's because what it will offer, it'll be the same open world grinding, but in a different area. Like that's really all it offers. If you know, that's kind of my thoughts.
Counterpoint. That is the game. I mean,
the game. You're right.
The grinding is the game. So it's like, I don't think what we have a problem with is the grinding or the Paragon grinding or anything like that. I think it's that right now we have a problem with it because there's no reason to do it right now. But before, while we were making advancements and climbing to the next difficulties and progressing through all the things, we weren't complaining at all. So I don't want to like rewrite history in terms of how I actually feel about the game, because I like the way the game is, and I do like that they're focusing on infrastructure and quality of lives. I just think for me, where I think the real big negation is in these big hype events. Like if you have the patch notes come out and you say, this event is coming out, this event is coming out, that is what people will be excited about. And then if you disappoint them when it actually arrives in the game, then you get the negative feedback because you got their excitement up from the patch notes, and then it's not delivered at the level that we were excited for, and then you get this feeling of sort of disappointment and like, why would I trust you guys again, or why would I be excited by another event if it's going to be the same thing again? So it's like, I understand the point, and we could make an argument that this entire game boils down to NASCAR and you're just running in a circle the whole time, but we signed up for that when we started. We knew it was going to be a grind. That's part of it. Diablo is literally a grind. I don't mind grinding. What I don't like doing is having these new content be only accessible to some people some of the time. That's my major complaint, because I do kind of want to be fair that not all games that we've played have actually focused on changing some of the things we've asked for, because I've seen them change multiple things that me and you have both directly requested, right?
The treasure goblins and dungeon drop rate buffs are two things that I was actually really excited about, and it made me grind dungeons far more than I was previously, just in that. And I agree with you. And honestly, if you compare it, because I see a lot of people, and I also do this, because I think that at some point, part of the reason why, you know, running in a circle isn't as appealing is because there isn't really a sense of progression, especially since like we have our 6-piece set items, at least I do. And so like for me, I really don't have anything to do in the game. I have my 6-piece set item. I have everything, right? All I'm doing is just keeping up. That's all I'm doing, because that's all I need to do. And if you compare that to like other Diablo games as well, it's like you're doing the same thing in that game. Like you're doing the same content over and over and over just to progress. And that's the same thing you're doing in this game. So I could see your counterpoint, and I could see the logic in it. And I also think that I think what people are mainly upset about is that they can't progress. And that's what makes the content annoying for them. And so I agree.
One thing that I will say to your point here, to counterpoint my own, is that if we've had no major updates so far, and we're all really hyped for a major update, and the major update is basically same mobs, new map, it's not exactly very major. I can get your point about that, because you probably want to see something larger than that. I mean, you want to see new class, you want to see new bosses, you want to see new dungeons, maybe new set, you want to see tons of new legendaries, you want to see all this stuff. That's one thing we haven't talked about, though, is they are adding new legendaries at a pace quicker than I would have assumed.
Yep. And
which I like. I mean, for me personally, my take on that is I like that. Spam the game up with legendary items, in my opinion. I have a whole bunch of builds. That's cool with me.
Yep. I think there's obviously there's the casual players that'll say, well, it's harder to get the builds that I want now. And I can see that point. But I think it does more good than bad. And I agree there. At this point, it's 64 additional legendary items in the game since the launch of the game. Which is, or not 64, it's 72. A little math there, but lots of legendary items. The thing is, I've thought about this, because this is something that I've thought about. What would I want added in this major update to make me like super excited? And honestly, to me, it has to be something that I can progress my character, because once Hell 5 comes, you're right, Hell 5 will be a fun experience for about a week. After that, it's back to the same thing. And what do I have left? Well, there's nothing. There's no Hell 6. Maybe they will add it, and I'm sure they will, or some sort of thing like that. But
Yeah, they got to.
yeah, there has to be some sort of progression, other progression system, or a fun event that allows me to keep up with the game. That's actually enjoyable to do for me to like log in and actually enjoy the game. Otherwise, it'll
Or
be the
ways to
same thing.
replay. I
Yep.
mean, or ways to replay the game. Like, look, what we could have too is like a hardcore mode, which only gives you the 100% experience, not bonus experience. And when your character dies, all of your experience transfers over to your main hero or something, and you can't buy anything on this account. You know what I mean? It's just you know how we have like Iron
Yep.
Man mode and RuneScape. Like it would take nothing to add like a hardcore mode that you can't get in the party. It's Iron Man mode, you know, whatever in the game. You have to do everything yourself. When you die, your progress, you know, your Paragon experience or whatever goes towards your main class or something. Yeah, I mean, there would be ways to reward it. I think adding sandbox elements to these type of games, especially if they want to try to pretend to fill the role of MMORPG,
Yep.
they need other ways to replay content we already have, because the reality of it is no mobile game has ever been able to or will be able to make content quicker than the people can absorb it. So there will always be a lack of content in every game, because there's always people that can play the game quicker than it can be coded. I mean, this is just like basic logic. So the only way to get around that is by making all of the game replayable. That's one way with like new classes, etc. But then the class change part also takes away some of the replayability of the game, because now it's like new class comes out, you just change to the new class and you're done in a week, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I agree. I was making an alt beforehand, and you were as well. And I've completely dropped it pretty much once I started class changing, because it's like, you know, I was going to do this free to play character, but I have so much time invested. I'm trying to experience all the classes, and I just there's no point in doing it on alt at this point. So, and I agree. I think last point here. The reason why I played MMOs, I think this is similar to how you played. I am generally speaking a lone wolf in an MMO. I played an MMORPG as an RPG with players that I could brag about my gear to, right? Like I run around and I'm like, I play Guild Wars 2, and I'm like, oh, look, check out this cool cosmetic, you know, and maybe I guess I'll group with you if I have to, and then or like check out this cool leaderboard. Like I'm on the leaderboard, so like I got my 99 in RuneScape, and I don't generally play with other people. I just kind of I'm in the community with them, right? And that's the appeal to MMORPGs to me. And so doing something that engages that aspect, which is, in my opinion, the coolest and the most unique thing about Diablo Immortal, is the fact that it's a community game and you can see your friends in the open world. That is the advantage of this game. And so doubling down on that, I think, is a really solid strategy, and you really make something that's unique and not necessarily very core to Diablo. And I think that's what makes people appeal to this game. I mean, that's what appealed to me. So, all right, well, thank you for your thoughts. Looks like we got some new content coming later on this month. We'll see. Check out Darth's channel. I'll leave a link to it in the comment section down below. You know he's going to go over the patch notes, and we're going to get all of our opinions out there. Make sure to leave the most amazing comment and boost the algorithm for us. And I'll see you, everyone, for the next video. Thank you, Darth, for showing up.
Till the next one, brother.